Hey everyone, it's me E and welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'm going to be sharing with you a children's board book that I wrote and illustrated for my son. And I started this project I think in November of 2023, and it took me over a year or about a year to complete the project, the illustration and the writing part. Then I sent it to like one publisher to see if they would publish it, and they rejected me, which is to be expected. So I really just wanted to get this in the hands of my child so that I could read it to him. So I published it, in air quotes, just through Shutterfly. Like, they have a board book service and it's super expensive. I think I paid like close to $40 for it. And so obviously, like, it was like a one-time special occasion type purchase. But I guess, I don't know. It's the kind of thing where I feel like the message of this book might be useful to other people. So I would have liked to be able to publish multiple copies so I could give it to other people or even sell it to other people. But at the same time, I know that I am very much like an amateur illustrator. And so, I don't know. Like, you know, like you tell your mom, you show your mom, and my mom's like, wow, Elizabeth, this is of a publishable quality. This is so well done. But because I'm the one who made it, when I look at it, all I see are the flaws. But anyway, that's my thoughts and feelings on it. I feel like the message is good, and I wanted to show it to my son as a show of my love for him. But in terms of actually getting it published, I don't know that it's to that caliber. But anyway, I thought, you know, since that didn't pan out at this time, that I would go ahead and share the process of making it with you. So I actually wrote it first in like the Notes app on my phone. And then I made like thumbnails, which you can see like in the beginning of each like sketching portion. And then I took a photo of the thumbnails and then put them in Procreate and like went ahead and finished the illustration digitally. And for the style of it, I didn't want it to be fully lined. So I do a full line art, I guess you would say, but then I go back and erase some of it because I wanted it to be a little bit softer and I guess sweeter looking, so I didn't have like harsh outlines around the whole thing. And as I said, it took me over a year to finish. Now, I took breaks in between, but it was kind of like a goal each month to finish 2 of these because I'm very slow at digital illustrating and the coloring and the lining and all of that. So it took me a long time. I think somebody else probably could have banged this thing out in like a week or a month, but I'm just not that person. So it took a while. The book is about like adoptive families. So you may be able to sense that from the illustrations that you've seen going by you so far. But at the end, I'm going to quote unquote read the book because I have the like completed pages with the text on them at the end. Another thing to note that I think is somewhat interesting is the order I'm showing them to you in this video is not the order that I actually did them in. So I hadn't created a cover or a cover page when I did the first like thumbnailing. I had only done like the pages, the internal pages. So once I basically got done with all of that, I went back at the very end and sketched a cover and a cover page. Those were kind of afterthoughts, which is funny because I feel like, you know, the whole don't judge a book by its cover. The cover is like the most important thing, but it was the thing I thought about at the end because to me, the inside is really what matters in terms of like when thinking about giving this as a gift to my child. And you can see here that I had to cheat a little bit with a reference because I just couldn't wrap my mind around like how to position the hands of somebody holding a trumpet. But that's the only time I really had to cheat that severely. But anyway, some people think that digital art in general is cheating, and I would strongly disagree with that. In some ways it takes longer. It just depends on what your skills are. You know, I kind of feel a little bit guilty sometimes with regards to my YouTube channel, because I made videos a couple of years ago talking about how I struggled with infertility, and I still do. I never cured my infertility, and at the time I felt like it was, I didn't enjoy listening to other people talk about their children, especially their young children, because it reminded me of what I didn't have and what I really desperately wanted, and it made me quite sad. And so, I still am committed on my YouTube channel to, never, show my child or, talk at length about him and what's going on with him. And so I finished this project before Christmas, back in 2024, but I hesitated to share the making of process because, like I said, I felt kind of guilty about basically sharing a book that I made for my son, and in essence a whole video that revolved around the fact that I have a child now. But I don't know that I've ever explained this at length on my channel before. I've alluded to it perhaps, and I've talked about it on my blog, which I link in the description of every video. But my son, you might be able to gather from this video, is adopted in a sense. We adopted him as an embryo. Some people are cagey about using the word adopted because technically, legally, it's not an adoption. It falls on the same kind of category as tissue donation, and that is an important legal distinction because framing it as a donation instead of an adoption means that you don't have to do things like home studies. You don't have to necessarily hire lawyers or anything like that. It's and it can be anonymous and closed, which is what we did. But if you do choose to go with an open embryo adoption, then you would likely have to get lawyers involved to sort of mitigate that agreement between the two parties. And I don't know how that all works because we didn't do it that way. But anyway, all that to say, I never, like I said, overcame my problems with infertility, even though I was pregnant and, carried a child to term. It wasn't in any way, shape, or form a result of my own fertility. I was fortunate in that I was able to carry a child, but I never necessarily suspected that that would be the problem in the first place, as I was never able to get pregnant in the first place when we were struggling with infertility. And so to this day, I don't know what is quote unquote wrong with me. I don't know why I can't get pregnant on my own, but it doesn't matter, I guess. I would never wish this on anybody, and I certainly don't wish it for myself, but now, having gone through all this process and doing an embryo adoption, I obviously couldn't imagine a different family for myself, and I feel like the child that I did get out of all of this is the best child I could have gotten. So in that sense, I'm quite glad that things worked out the way that they did. But it certainly takes some healing, I guess, to even get to that point, to where you're in a place where you're willing to consider embryo adoption. And adoption is something that was always in my mind of a possibility of something that me and my husband could do, not knowing that we wouldn't be able to have children. So I was already mentally prepared to love an adopted child in that sense. But and even still, doing an embryo adoption is different from traditional adoption in that you get to carry the child and bond and have them from the day that they're born. So the process is very unique, and if you want to hear more about it, you can check out my blog, which will be linked as always in the description. But all that to say, that's the framing of this book. I wanted to make this book for my son to celebrate the fact that he is not biologically related to us, but the love that we have for him, is so immense. So I wanted to make a book about that to assure him that we wouldn't want it any other way. and that he really is awesome. So the book is called We Wanted You, which was written and illustrated by me, and I will now read it to you. Mommy and Daddy wanted you. Even though we may have different eye colors, even though we may have different hair colors, even though we may have different skin colors, Mommy and Daddy wanted you. Even though you may grow up to be a different size, even though you may grow up to have different talents, even though you may grow up to like different things, Mommy and Daddy wanted you. Even though we may not sound the same, even though we may not laugh the same, even though we may not act the same, Mommy and Daddy wanted you. Even though we don't have the same genes, Mommy and Daddy wanted you. That's why we picked you. Mommy and Daddy wanted you, and we love you now and forever. Thanks for watching, guys. See you on the next one. Bye-bye.